everyone. Welcome to the LexTech Meet 3.0. My name is Sethi and I will be the moderator for this session. We have with us Mr. Kamlesh Nagware, who is the Chief Technology Officer, Snapper Future Tech. He is amongst the top 30 influencers of blockchain in India. He is the co-chair of Hyperledger India. He is the member of Hyperledger Technical Steering, which derives technical directions of Hyperledger Foundation, which is the Linux Foundation enterprise blockchain. He plays active role across the Hyperledger community, consulting climate actions and accounting for special interest groups for trade fund, etc. Sir, we welcome you to the Lex Tech Meet. And in the beginning, I would like to congratulate you and winning the hackathon Sprint '04 Market Tech and Capital Markets. Sir.
Yeah, thank you, Shyam. And in the introduction, also, I would like to add, like recently, I just given my first tech talk in the recent TEDx event in Dehradun on the blockchain and emerging tech in blockchain.
That's great, sir.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Regarding this session, sir, I would be starting with our first topic which is regarding the cryptographic algorithms. Sir, if you could provide us a brief light upon cryptographic algorithm and discuss about some popular algorithms that are presently there in the market.
Yeah, sure. So generally, cryptography is the backbone of any kind of whether it's a cyber security or blockchain for hiding some kind of information. And there are two ways of cryptographic algorithm. One is symmetric, another is asymmetric. Symmetric means like you just encrypt the message in the same key and then decrypt by the same key. The symmetric one. In asymmetric, there is a separate public and private key combination of for the PKI infrastructure, public-private key infrastructure, and you just sign the message and encrypt the message with one of the key, and you can decrypt via the another key, whether it's a private or public. And in the blockchain, it plays a very important role because in whatever the data you are storing, you sign and encrypt in a hash using some cryptographic algorithms. And most popular cryptographic algorithm is SHA-256, which is mostly and widely used in all the blockchain framework, whether it is Ethereum, whether it is a Hyperledger. But there are other cryptographic algorithms like MD, MD5, and there is like there is another version of SHA like SHA 526 and other things. And different geographic conditions have their different algorithms. For example, like China have their own cryptographic algorithms. US have their NIST standard for the cryptographic algorithms. So these cryptographic algorithms generally used to kind of hide the information and bring the security in any kind of software. Yeah.
Right, sir. Usually, we know there are two types of transactions, right? One is the off-chain and one is the on-chain transactions. So how exactly the transactions are different from each other and they work exactly?
Okay, so simply the on-chain and off-chain, if it's in the definition, like on-chain, whatever the transaction you are writing in a main ledger or any kind of blockchain ledger is a on-chain transaction. And the transaction you are not writing in a chain, just writing in maybe in some off-chain DB, like suppose you are local DB for some kind of processing perspective, or maybe the data which is not important to be kept for longer time. This is an off-chain transaction. And technically, why we use the on-chain off-chain concept, because maybe the first is the security aspect, whether the data should be kind of delete after some time, like for example GDPR compliance, because we need some kind of data which we should not be keeping all the time and infinite in the database. So we use the off-chain concepts. That means we write the data and then anytime we can delete this off-chain DB anytime required by the customer compliance. Another reason maybe the data which we just not that much important to be stored in a permanent way or in a blockchain way, because storing data in a blockchain is costly and even transaction speed is also matters. Like for example, Ethereum, you can't process the transaction more than like suppose 10 TPS. So if you try to store anything on a main chain, then it will take lots of time. So better we divide the transaction in a different ways, like the data which is not important is stored in some kind of off-chain DB called Offchain transaction. The data which is very important and should be in blockchain for permanent and for the traceability and transparency perspective is stored in a on-chain transaction, on-chain DB.
So next, I would like to discuss upon the consensus mechanisms that exist in this tech world. So we have heard that there used to be only two consensus mechanisms. Then there evolved another consensus mechanism recently. So what are these consensus mechanisms? And if a cryptopreneur is basically entering the market, what should be the checklist of that cryptopreneur to choose the right consensus mechanism if he or she is entering the market right now?
Okay, so generally in the blockchain, consensus mechanism is some kind of agreement mechanism, some kind of approval of the transaction, and and I can categorize the consensus into two different blockchains. One is a private blockchain, and one is a public blockchain, where this cryptocurrency is kind of and some kind of public blockchain like Ethereum. So in those categories, there are consensus majorly proof of work and proof of stake, and there are a number of flavor of proof of stake as per the tech stack. So proof of work generally simply if every node in the blockchain would approve the transaction is a become a proof of work. That means they're doing some kind of cryptographic hash calculation and maybe some mining kind of effort. This is the proof of work, and every node in the blockchain should approve the transaction that is validated and confirmed and committed in the ledger and node. Proof of stake where we define some kind of incentive model and keep some kind of stake in a network. And say like for example, suppose out of 1,000 only 100 node will be the participating in the consensus, means approving a transaction. So this 100 node will need to put some kind of their Ethereum or some currency as a stake, and they according to their stake percentage they can vote on the particular data in the blockchain. So this the two consensus mechanisms mainly in the public blockchain. In a private and permission blockchain, there are number of ways. Like there is a RAFT consensus, there is a Kafka consensus, there is a Tendermint, for example, and those is a customizable consensus mechanism which can be designed or can be used as per the enterprise use cases. For example, you don't need to define how many persons would or how many nodes would approve the transaction. This could be only for example, in a supply chain transaction, only manufacturer and suppliers would approve the transaction. Buyer is not playing any role. That kind of thing. So kind of customized consensus mechanism like RAFT, like BFT, Benjamin fault tolerance. They generally use in a private and permission blockchain. For the cryptopreneur perspective, which algorithm is considered? So like generally who are building or maybe whether they are using or maybe writing on some kind of use cases in public blockchain, then they should always consider the algorithm which takes less energy, like proof of stake, or they are process on number of transaction, because if you are not able to transaction more, then your blockchain is not kind of worthy or maybe is taking so much time. So proof of stake and there are number of proof of stake flavors can be used to for the cryptocurrency perspective.
Right, sir. And that was one of the again main reasons why Bitcoin was also using POW. And since it was more energy consuming, it was again in a
Correct.
gray area with regards to the environment work. And that is the reason even some environmentalists were against the use of Bitcoin. So
Yeah, right.
next, right. So the next area of discussion would be regarding the Hyperledger and basically what exactly is the Hyperledger fabric and why the term fabric is being used here.
Okay, so when public blockchain and this cryptocurrency word is doing something separately, so and this is the technology behind this blockchain. So the enterprise perspective, people see like this technology could be used more than the cryptocurrency perspective. So Linux Foundation, who actually running the couple of projects in the past like cloud computing, artificial intelligence, or maybe even CNC kind of project and like Kubernetes, they decided to start the new project where it could be used the technology same concept to build the enterprise use cases, and that's where they founded the Hyperledger, the foundation. And Hyperledger is a kind of umbrella project. They have a number of projects like Hyperledger Indy, Fabric, Iroha, Sato, many such projects, more than 13 14 projects in the project assembly. So and but most popular is Hyperledger Fabric because it is the first project which is matured, and now everybody using in their blockchain as service like Google and AWS, and every cloud is using now. So first is contributed by IBM and another startup who are the part of the hackathon. And the fabric name consists maybe very complex and very modular. How you can plug and play the component in a kind of fabric way. Uh, the same can be done in a Hyperledger Fabric project. That means it's a completely modular. Like whatever the component you need, you can plug and play manner, and is very highly designed for a enterprise solution. So is not specific for the specific use case. This could be used for any kind of use cases, whether it's a supply chain, whether it's identity management, whether it's a banking, financial services. Uh, so any kind of use cases can build on the fabric or Hyperledger Fabric.
So, if you could
Yeah.
elaborate more upon the consensus mechanism which the Hyperledger, and then I can take a follow-up question with regards to how BFT is different from RAFT.
Sure.
First, if you
So
could say more about the consensus mechanism. Yes, sir.
okay. So Hyperledger Fabric is a permission blockchain. So generally it uses the three types of consensus. So first is consensus where there is only one ordering service is there, which will take all the transaction and create a block on a specific time interval, which we can define and customize, and it cuts the block. But that particular consensus is called solo consensus, but it is only used for the testing and development perspective. Then another consensus is Kafka and Zookeeper. So Kafka and Zookeeper is already distributed computing component, which plays a very important role, kind of heart messaging and creating a block, Kafka and Zookeeper. So there's another consensus mechanism. Third consensus, which is very highly used in production phase, this is the RAFT. So is a RAFT consensus generally is a RAFT protocol, and which even the Kubernetes and Docker generally use for their inter-component communication. So RAFT, there are kind of at least minimum 3 node required. For the production is at least 5 nodes is required, and you can define the 2n+1 kind of setup where if one of the component fail, still it will be running the application. So and in the fabric, consensus is very complex thing because they decided the consensus from the transaction proposal itself to till creating a block and committing a block. So generally other blockchain generally you create a block and then it's broadcasted and approved by all the participants. But in a fabric, there are three level different stages of any transaction. First is kind of it create a transaction proposal which is executed by all the node, and they create some kind of result, read and write output. Then it's sent to the ordering service, which is actually typically consensus mechanism like RAFT, where number of node is running, who having validating this transaction input output, and then creating a block, and then block sent out to the all the respective node to committed data in a DB state or in a ledger. This is the way. And how it and then now but there are some limitation of RAFT because RAFT is generally provide you the fault tolerance kind of setup, but is not provide the uh, kind of consensus where one particular entity is making a wrong decision. That only BFT can introduce. Like for example, there are five node is there, and if two is taking a wrong decision and three is taking a right decision, so this kind of mechanism is not available. That is available in the BFT. So uh, BFT consensus mechanism still need to be implemented in a fabric. Even there are other blockchain protocol like Hyperledger Start is already implemented, or some other protocol implemented like Tendermint, use that one. But Fabric is still working on this, and they are in the development and in the plan phase.
Sure, sir. Sir, my next question is like on behalf of all the tech enthusiasts here, and it's on a lighter note, sir. Sir, recently, like a few years back, we heard that a thing called Web 3.0 is coming up. And now, sir, while we were testing our waters with Web 3.0, suddenly we hear that it's Web 5.0 that has emerged now. So, what do you think would be the impact of this Web 5.0 and how this would lead to a change in the cryptographic world?
So I think this Web 5, I think just the name. I think is recently this Twitter founder said, right? He started this Web 5 concept. So I think maybe just the naming convention only, but I think still we are doing the Web 3 where we are putting the decentralization of data to the consumer itself, to user. And still there are nothing. I think there are lots of things to do. There's this metaverse environment coming. The tokenomics is still pending. So I think Web 5 or Web 4, I don't think that is some reality. Still, there are a lot of things to do in Web 3.
Right, sir. Sir, my just a few closing remarks with regards to how do you think the world would be coping with the changes in the technology, because technology is evolving very fast. So, a few remarks on that part.
So definitely, like mainly this due to this COVID pandemic, many of things like digital transformation, especially this blockchain and this tokenomics, and like now, kind of decentralization is putting on any kind of use cases, whether government, whether it's supply chain, even our financial institution like RBI announced about the CBDC. So like how the UPI and changed the our payment industry in last five, at least I think in the last 5 years only, when this node bandi announced by the PM and there's COVID, it's completely now anyone can pay via just 1 or 2 rupee via the UPI. But still that is centralized money, or still the RBI need to put lots of effort to manage the payment infrastructure. But when the CBDC will be available, or digital identities will be available in the market, then it is going to solve or maybe create the lots of new business model. Like CBDC is the really interesting stuff. It will it will it will mean the trust and transparency of the payment. Like for example, if some money given to the particular purpose to particular person, it could be traceable. Currently is not feasible. So when this kind of things maybe reduce the corruption, or maybe bring the more trust and transparency in any kind of transaction, and not just the payment but like education, like metaverse kind of concepts coming, or maybe it was there earlier. AR/VR is not the new thing; it's very old, but now bringing the decentralization and trusted of this kind of virtual environment, blockchain can play a very important role, and this is also going to impact the uh, our lives.
So, which type of blockchain is more vulnerable to like having disadvantages? Is it the public or the private, or which type of blockchain could be vulnerable to it?
So what I think I believe this is going to be very tough question, because earlier I thought maybe public blockchain is going to be disappear in few years, and only the enterprise blockchain is going to be. But there are a number of use cases where we need the public and private blockchain combination kind of interoperability, and that's why there are a number of institution and research is going on to bring the interoperability between the public and private blockchain. So both are going to be coexist. So maybe where we need the some kind of complete decentralization, then people use the public blockchain. Where we need the business enterprises to be running on blockchain, they will use the private blockchain. And where we need the both combination, then it's going to be combination of both. So, and I think tokenomics is a very great example. DeFi is the right space where the public blockchain can play important role.
Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of, we have answer. So, does the
Yeah.
metaverse companies going to subsidize the products of AR or VR?
So I think there is a one reason why AR and VR technology is not growing so much, because this is very costly and is not a kind of user friendly, we can say. And I think everyone can't afford the AR VR devices. So when this metaverse image and the number of use cases going to be like how the mobile and laptop is now become a kind of daily used to device. Maybe AR VR devices could be become that kind of devices where you now, for example, earlier is a smartphone, now become everyone's in hands. So same way, this metaverse environments kind of companies could create some kind of incentive model, subsidy model, where they will charge the user experience and user services instead of charging the devices. I think this could be in the future.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
sir. On behalf of Engineer Legal and Tech Solutions and Vaidhanik, a startup incubator, I would like to thank you for sparing your valuable time for having a discussion on very key topics for technology. I really thank you from the core of our heart and from